One of America's most influential and weirdest billionaires has packed up, fled the country, and moved to, of all places, Argentina. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and Palantir, one of Facebook's earliest backers and Republican megadonor who has publicly warned about the coming of the Antichrist, has bought a $12 million mansion in Buenos Aires and enrolled his children into local schools. But while Thiel has moved himself and his family to Argentina, his fortune is doing the exact opposite. In a single quarter, his company booked $687 million in revenue from the United States government alone. Meanwhile, his venture firm just wrote the largest single check in its history for a defense contractor that landed a $20 billion US Army deal. So, instead of fleeing the American system, Thiel now owns a larger piece of it than ever before. With that in mind, today we break down the tax deadline he was racing against, the capital that never left American soil, and why he chose Javier Milei's Argentina out of every other country on Earth. My name is Guy, and this is the Finance Bureau. So, the 58-year-old Peter Thiel has purchased a historic 17,200 square foot mansion in Barrio Parque, one of the most exclusive enclaves in Buenos Aires. The property was designed by the renowned Argentine architect Alejandro Bustillo, giving it real cultural prestige. He also relocated his husband, Matt Danzeisen, and their children, who were reportedly enrolled in a local school. And then there were at least 4 documented meetings with Argentina's President Javier Milei across 2 years, including multiple encounters in Buenos Aires in April 2026. He's also met with Milei's deregulation minister and his economy minister. So naturally, this has triggered speculation that Argentina was about to hand Thiel citizenship under a brand new investment framework. However, a spokesperson for President Milei explicitly denied that any formal citizenship offer was ever made. What we do know, though, is that Argentina passed Decree 524 in 2025, a citizenship by investment scheme waiving the usual residency requirement for investors with a threshold expected around $500,000. And the government's tone has been unmistakable. Argentina's cabinet chief openly declared that all the billionaires of the world fleeing high-tax, over-regulated countries are, quote, welcome in the Argentine Republic, the new land of freedom. So, the picture being painted with Peter Thiel is of a billionaire bolting for a libertarian refuge. However, a look at the calendar reveals that this was in fact a carefully planned move. You see, Thiel left California in 2025, timing his exit against one very specific deadline. This was a ballot initiative in California, the so-called Billionaire Tax Act, proposing a one-time 5% tax on any net worth above $1 billion. And the entire thing hinged on a single date, a residency snapshot taken on the 1st of January 2026. Put simply, if you were a California resident on that morning and had a net worth of $1 billion or more, you were liable. If you'd already established your domicile somewhere else, however, you had a powerful argument that you were not. For Thiel, reports suggest his exposure to that one tax was somewhere in the region of $1.4 billion. But he wasn't the only one paying attention. At least 6 prominent California tech billionaires reportedly relocated themselves and/or their business entities out of the state before that deadline hit. Together, those individuals represented a significant share of the initiative's potential tax base. The Legislative Analyst's Office estimates the full measure could raise roughly $100 billion from California's roughly 200 billionaires, which naturally means at least some of those billionaires are going to relocate to try and avoid it. And here's why, for Peter Thiel at any rate, Argentina is such an attractive prospect. You see, as a non-resident, Argentina's wealth tax would generally only apply to his local assets, like that mansion. His global fortune, the Palantir stake, the venture portfolios, all of it stays completely outside the Argentine tax net. This is the critical distinction between migration residency and tax residency. He can use the mansion as what advisors call a bolt hole, spending most of his time elsewhere, and never expose the bulk of his wealth to the Argentine taxman. But intriguingly, Argentina is just the latest entry on a rather long list, because Thiel has been collecting exits for years. He holds American citizenship by birth and German citizenship, having been born in Frankfurt. He was granted New Zealand citizenship back in 2011, where he bought a 477-acre sheep station, despite having spent barely any time in the country, which caused considerable public controversy. And he reportedly applied for Maltese citizenship around 2022. So, look at the timeline. New Zealand in 2011, Malta in 2022, Argentina in 2025. This is a man methodically building a deliberate strategy. And by the way, if you want to get a better overview of the stories that directly affect your portfolio, then you should be reading the Finance Bureau newsletter. It's absolutely free, and we break down everything regarding global finance, commodity markets, macroeconomic trends, and monetary policy so that you never miss what truly matters. All you have to do is click the link in the description or scan this QR code to get started. All right then, now let's dig a little deeper into the fact that while Thiel may be checking out of the USA, his capital is doing nothing of the sort. We'll start with Palantir, which in the first quarter of 2026 booked $687 million in US government revenue alone. To put that into perspective, that single quarter of government revenue is worth roughly 57 times the price of his entire Buenos Aires mansion, every 90 days. And the growth is almost entirely American. Palantir's total US revenue grew 104% year over year in that quarter. Its international revenue, around 38%. While Thiel moves globally, his money is concentrating intensely inside the United States. And that embeddedness runs deeper than just revenue. In March 2026, the Pentagon designated Palantir's Maven Smart system as an official program of record. In plain English, that locks Palantir into the Defense Department's multi-year budget process, insulating it from annual political squabbles and guaranteeing revenue until at least 2029. A NATO commander even admitted that Europe currently has no viable alternative to Palantir's battlefield AI. And then there's Anduril, the defense startup backed by Thiel's Founders Fund. In June 2025, Founders Fund committed $1 billion to Anduril in a single round, the largest individual check in the firm's entire history. 8 months later, in March 2026, the US Army awarded Anduril a 10-year contract worth up to $20 billion. Then, in May 2026, Anduril closed a $5 billion Series H round led by Thrive Capital and Andreessen Horowitz that valued the company at $61 billion, more than doubling its valuation from the June 2025 round. Meanwhile, Anduril is building Arsenal 1, a 5 million square foot weapons manufacturing facility, not in Argentina, not in New Zealand, but in central Ohio, Pickaway County, just south of Columbus. Thiel's network is building America's next weapons factory right in the American Midwest. By most assessments, the overwhelming bulk of Thiel's fortune, his Palantir equity, Founders Fund stakes, and US venture positions remain anchored entirely within the American financial system. So, paradoxically, while Thiel may be looking to live outside the US for whatever reason, he's more financially indispensable to the US security state than he has ever been. He remains deeply invested in America, choosing to hedge his residence rather than his income. But why Argentina specifically? Well, the answer traces back to an idea Thiel has been funding for nearly 2 decades. You see, he's long championed a concept he calls exit over voice. Instead of trying to fix a broken system from the inside, you simply leave it and build a new one. In 2009, he wrote that he no longer believed freedom and democracy were compatible, and argued the future of freedom lay in new spaces beyond the reach of the state. And he put real money behind that belief. In 2008, he seeded the Seasteading Institute, co-founded by Milton Friedman's grandson, eventually contributing around $1.25 million towards the dream of floating autonomous cities in international waters beyond any nation's laws or taxes. When that stalled, he pivoted to charter cities on land. His flagship experiment in this regard was Prospera, a private enclave on a Honduran island operating under its own legal system with a 1% business tax and private arbitration instead of national courts. And here is the cautionary tale, because Prospera is the perfect foreshadow. When the Honduran government changed and repealed the law, Prospera's backers filed a claim with an international tribunal. The initial demand was just shy of $11 billion in damages. Their own experts later floated a ceiling as high as $26.4 billion. So, consider the pattern. Thiel backs a libertarian microstate, the host government changes its mind, and now there's an 11-figure lawsuit to deal with. Argentina is the same bet, but on a nation-state scale. Thiel now gets to watch an entire country run a real-time libertarian experiment. Milei is helping this along by slashing ministries, eliminating price controls, deregulating energy and agriculture, and pursuing dollarization. Both Thiel and Milei publicly hold the view that taxes are theft. Thiel is relocating to a live test of the exact ideas he's been bankrolling for 20 years. And this trend extends far beyond one eccentric billionaire and ultimately affects everyone, because Thiel is simply the loudest signal of a longer-term direction of travel. In 2025, private wealth migration trackers recorded another record year for millionaire relocations across borders. Industry surveys suggest a substantial share of ultra-high net worth individuals have already established a second legal jurisdiction, with a growing proportion actively exploring further options. And industry trackers report that demand from American clients for alternative residency and citizenship programs has surged sharply in recent years. The US is now consistently one of the top source markets for such applications. So, when you hear "billionaire flees America," understand what's really happening here. The ultra-wealthy now treat citizenship like a diversified portfolio. Just as no sophisticated investor puts 100% of their money into a single stock, this class no longer puts 100% of their legal existence into a single jurisdiction. But notice what they almost never do. They don't actually renounce. You see, the United States taxes its citizens on worldwide income no matter where they live, one of only 2 countries on Earth to do so. And renouncing triggers a brutal exit tax on the deemed sale of all your worldwide assets. The wealthy secure the option to leave without actually severing their ties to America. So, the system being built here is a 2-tier one. The people with the most capital and the best information are buying optionality. They get a second passport, a third, a bolt hole on another continent, a legal escape hatch from any single government's decision. The rest of us, on the other hand, are tied to one jurisdiction, one tax authority, one currency, and one set of political outcomes we have no power to opt out of. When your government raises taxes, you pay them. When your currency weakens, your purchasing power erodes with it. You cannot scan a QR code and become a non-resident of your own financial reality. The exits being engineered at the top are simply not available to the average household. And that asymmetry is perhaps the real story here. It goes far beyond one man's mansion. It's a class of people rewiring their relationship to the nation-state itself, while everyone else stays exactly where they are. The era of treating citizenship as a fixed, permanent fact of life is ending, at least for those who can afford it. A collapse happens by accident and everyone sees it coming. A hedge, by contrast, is a subtle, deliberate choice made years in advance, documented in tax filings and passport applications, rather than in panic. Peter Thiel simply bought himself the option of never being trapped by any one country's decisions. His capital stays embedded in the American security state, earning hundreds of millions of dollars a quarter, while he himself floats free across 4 passports. This is a portfolio mentality applied to the one thing most people never imagined could be diversified: their nationality itself. But what do you reckon? When the people with the most information and the deepest pockets start buying exits, are they just paranoid billionaires chasing a fantasy? Or are they simply early and the rest of us are watching the first draft of a world where loyalty to a single country becomes entirely optional? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. That's all from me for today though, so as always, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. This is Guy, signing off.